Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really plunging into the world of testing and assessment. It's quite a topic.
It really is. And we've got this great piece from neurosignal.tech, Decoding the Art of Testing. A deep dive into assessment came out May 26th, 2025.
Right. And our goal today really is to pull out the key ideas, the main principles.
And maybe some of the newer ways people are thinking about how we measure understanding and skills.
Exactly. We want to make it clear what makes a test, well, good, effective, meaningful, without getting totally lost in all the technical jargon.
Yeah, because there's actually a lot more going on behind the scenes than you might initially think when you sit down for a test.
For sure. It's definitely not just about ticking boxes or getting the right answer. This source, it takes us from the real basics, the foundations.
All the way through to some pretty cool new techniques, and even how you uh, balance that need for objective scores with, well, allowing for some creativity.
Okay, so let's unpack that. To really get a grip on what makes a test valuable, where do we even begin? What's the starting point?
Well, the article makes it clear it all starts with the foundations. You need a solid base. Effective testing isn't just about that final score.
It's about the structure underneath.
Exactly. A well-thought-out structure. And right at the heart of that are the purposes of testing. The source points out three main ones: diagnostic insight, performance measurement, and formative feedback.
Okay, so diagnostic insight. That's like figuring out strengths and weaknesses, like
Yeah.
an initial check.
Precisely. Finding out where you're strong, where you might need a bit more help. Then performance measurement, that's more about gauging overall mastery, right? Seeing how well you've learned something.
Measuring achievement, basically.
Yes. And the third one, formative feedback, is maybe the most interesting in some ways. It's about using the test itself as a tool to help you learn and improve along the way.
So not just a judgment at the end, but part of the actual learning process.
Exactly. And, there's research suggesting that good formative feedback can actually lead to much bigger learning gains compared to just getting a final grade.
That's a really key point. Tests as tools for growth. Okay, so those are the purposes. Now, the article also mentioned 4 critical elements for a strong foundation.
That's right. The source really hammers home validity, reliability, fairness, and efficiency. They're like the pillars holding everything up.
Let's take validity first. What does that mean practically?
Okay, so validity is basically asking, does this test actually measure what it claims to measure?
Right.
So if you're testing critical thinking, but the questions are all just about remembering dates, well, that test isn't valid for critical thinking. It's got to align with the objectives, as the article says. Otherwise, the results don't really mean anything useful.
Okay, makes sense. It has to be relevant. Then reliability, that sounds like consistency.
Spot on. A reliable test gives you consistent results. If you took it again soon after, assuming you haven't learned a lot more or forgotten things, your score should be pretty similar.
Like stepping on scales that give you the same weight each time.
Exactly like that. If the scores jump around wildly, you can't really trust the test, can you? That consistency builds confidence.
Got it. So validity is measuring the right thing. Reliability is measuring it consistently. What about fairness? Seems obvious, but I bet there's nuance.
Oh, definitely. Fairness means it's equitable for everyone taking it. No bias baked in. That could be, cultural references some people won't get, or tricky language that isn't actually what's being tested.
Or even just the environment, right? Like a noisy room.
Absolutely. Little things can matter. The source stresses that fairness helps include everyone and builds trust in the whole process. It's about giving everyone an equal shot to show what they know.
Okay, and the last one was efficiency. That's about resources, time, and money.
Precisely. Is the test doable without wasting tons of time or effort for both the people taking it and the people administering and scoring it? A good test gives useful info without being overly burdensome.
Like optimizing the workflow, as the article put it.
Yeah. And some newer methods, like adaptive testing, which we can talk about, are often more efficient because they tailor themselves to the person.
Right. So understanding these 4, validity, reliability, fairness, efficiency, that gives us a good framework for looking at everything else, including those newer methods.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It sets the stage perfectly because testing is evolving beyond just, multiple choice papers.
So what are some of these innovative techniques the source highlights?
Well, one is project-based evaluation. This is much more hands-on. Learners actually do a project to show their skills.
Oh, right. Like in engineering or design, maybe?
Exactly. The article points to those fields. You build something, you design something. It shows you can actually apply the knowledge, not just recall facts.
Yeah, building a model instead of just answering questions about the theory behind it. That makes sense for showing practical skills.
Definitely. Then there's adaptive testing. This uses tech to change the difficulty on the fly.
Based on how you're...
Right. Get one right, the next might be harder. Get one wrong, maybe a bit easier. The source mentions language tests use this a lot. It finds your level much faster.
That sounds way more efficient and probably less frustrating than everyone doing the same fixed set of questions.
It often is. Studies show it can cut test time significantly while still being accurate. So, big win for efficiency and the test taker experience.
Okay, what else? Any other new approaches?
Peer review is another one. Learners actually evaluate each other's work based on criteria.
Interesting. So you're not just getting feedback, you're giving it.
Exactly. And that process forces you to really understand the standards, the material. The article suggests it's great for subjects like literature or humanities where interpretation matters.
I can see that. Having to critique someone else's essay would make you think hard about what makes a good essay.
It really deepens engagement. And finally, the source talks about simulations.
Ah, like flight simulators.
Precisely. Creating realistic scenarios where you apply skills in a safe space. Medical training, aviation, those are key areas mentioned. But even simpler simulations like some educational games use this idea.
So practicing an emergency procedure in a simulation instead of just reading about it, that seems incredibly valuable for practical skills.
Hugely valuable. And the article points out the benefits of all these methods. They give a more holistic picture of understanding, often provide faster feedback, and can be more inclusive for different learning styles.
It really shifts the focus towards demonstrating competence, not just recall.
Which leads nicely into the next point, right? This balance between objectivity and creativity. Because assessing a project isn't quite like marking multiple choice.
Yeah, how do you balance that? You need some structure, but you also want to see deeper thinking.
It's a key challenge. The source explains that objectivity standardized formats like multiple choice is still really important, especially for measuring factual recall reliably and fairly. It gives you that clear benchmark.
Minimizes ambiguity, ensures everyone's marked on the same scale.
Exactly. But then you need the creative approach too. Open-ended questions, scenarios. These let you explore conceptual understanding, critical thinking, applying knowledge in new ways.
So multiple choice checks if you remember the fact, but an open question shows if you understand it and can use it.
That's a great way to put it. The objective tests measure recall against predefined answers. The creative ones look for analytical depth, originality, using criteria that allow for different valid responses.
And the article suggests mixing them is often best.
Yes, definitely. Combining them helps get both fairness and engagement. It lets learners show what they know in different ways, playing to different strengths. Maybe a project has some calculations that have to be right, that's objective, but also a design element that's assessed more creatively.
That makes a lot of sense. Structure plus flexibility. Okay, so we have these different approaches, but how do we make sure any test, traditional or innovative, is actually reliable and valid? What strategies does the article suggest?
Right, because just having a fancy test format doesn't guarantee quality. The source highlights several practical things. First, rubric development.
Defining the marking criteria clearly.
Exactly. Really detailed rubrics with clear benchmarks and descriptive language. It means everyone scoring, whether it's a teacher or a peer, knows exactly what they're looking for. It massively boosts consistency between graders.
So everyone's on the same page about what good looks like.
Precisely. Another big one is pilot testing.
Trying it out first.
Yeah, on a small representative group before you use it for real. It helps you catch confusing questions, timing issues, problems with instructions. You iron out the kinks beforehand.
Like a dress rehearsal for the test. Smart.
Definitely saves headaches later. Then peer review systems, not just for learners, but for the assessment itself, or having multiple graders.
Getting multiple perspectives on the score.
Yes, especially for more subjective tasks. It helps balance out individual biases. Rotating the evaluators can help too.
Makes sense. And the last strategy?
Evaluator training. Making sure the people doing the scoring are well trained. Regular workshops, practice sessions, making sure they understand the rubrics and how to apply them consistently.
So it's about the test design and the people using it.
Absolutely. And the source also briefly touches on standardized conditions, minimizing distractions, and being flexible for diverse needs, all contributing to fairness and reliability.
Wow. Okay, so designing effective assessments is clearly quite involved. It's much more than just writing some questions down.
It really is. It's a whole system. As the article wraps up, it emphasizes that good testing is this blend, clear foundations like validity and reliability, innovative methods, that balance of objectivity and creativity, plus deliberate strategies to keep it accurate and consistent.
It's a dynamic process focused on understanding and growth, not just measurement.
Exactly. It's about communication between the person teaching and the person learning.
So it's not just about the grade. It's a tool for you, the learner, to see where you are, how you're doing, where to focus next, like a dialogue, as the article nicely puts it, a pathway to keep learning.
Yeah. Ideally, assessment is woven right into the learning journey, guiding everyone involved.
Well, this has been a really fascinating deep dive. It definitely makes you look at tests differently, doesn't it?
It does.
Whether you're the one taking them or maybe the one creating them, thinking about validity, reliability, all these things, how do they actually play out? And maybe what could we gain by thinking just a bit more deeply about this whole art of assessment? Something to ponder. Thanks for unpacking all that.
My pleasure. It's definitely food for thought. How we measure learning is fundamental to how we actually learn.